7:52 at the Big 550 KTRS. I've been doing this for over 30 years. This is the most asinine act I've ever seen a police officer make. Totally unwarranted. It's an absolute tragedy in the year 2015 that anyone would behave in this manner. It was senseless. Those are the words of Joe Dieters, who's the prosecutor in Hamilton County, Ohio, about the case of police officer Ray Tensing, a University of Cincinnati cop who was indicted yesterday on a murder charge for shooting a guy by the name of Samuel Dubose, a guy he had pulled over for a traffic stop because he didn't have a front license plate, and ended up firing one shot that killed Samuel Dubose. He's now been charged with murder, the police officer has. Dubose died in the incident. Here to comment on this and share some perspective is Brad Garrett, our crime and terrorism analyst. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning, Paul.
So what do you think about this case?
Well, obviously the district attorney thinks that there is no redeeming factor to this in reference to the officer. You know, the officer alleges that his arm got hooked inside the car, and basically the car was dragging him down the street, and he felt like he didn't have any choice but to shoot the driver. Now, that remains to be seen whether that's accurate or not. But let's back up a little bit. The big issue here is, why did it ever escalate to that? Because what the officer should have done, okay, Du Bois wouldn't get out of the car. I get that. But you don't escalate it. You call an officer in, you call a sergeant, you call a lieutenant, and you talk to him and say, look, I understand you don't want to get out of the car for whatever reason. We just have to clear you, check the car, then you can drive away. Instead of getting into, I'm the cop, you're the citizen, you're going to do what I say. You know, it's that automatic trigger. You saw it in the Sandra Bland case. That trooper in Texas got hooked. He got mad. And once he got mad, he's not going to listen to you. Even though your behavior may not be perfect, you still have to take the high road, and you still have to de-escalate until there's no other choice but to react in some form, like pull your firearm. But you know, they weren't even close to that in this Cincinnati scenario.
Yeah, Brad, about a half hour ago we were talking to a guy named Kevin Briggs, who used to be a California highway patrolman, and his job was to talk people down who wanted to commit suicide by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. And in talking to him, he was the most calm, level-headed, even-headed guy, even-tempered guy I've ever talked to in my life. That's the kind of cop you need to have in more of these traffic stop situations, or at least the right mentality for a cop.
That's right, and a part of this, Paul, goes to training. And you know, I think it's an area that gets overlooked. I think in every police agency, the ability to communicate, the ability to figure out, you know, when people have escalated, like, you know, your example of the CHP guy that talked people off bridges. You know, I was a hostage negotiator. You don't become part of their escalation. You let them escalate, and then you bring them back down. Whether it's a car stop, whether it's a guy about to jump off the bridge, the approach is the same, and you have to align your personality and the triggers in your personality in dealing with the public, because there are certain things that make all of us mad. Check it, back up, and renegotiate.
Well, let's also be honest about one other thing here, Brad, and that is, when you are a university campus cop, you're not exactly at the top of your profession. I mean, I don't mean to diss people who do the job too much here, but we can't put them on the same level as well-trained municipal police officers, although we've had obviously enough problems with that level of law enforcement in the last couple of years, particularly when it's a white cop and a black person behind the wheel or wherever it is. But maybe the level of training for a university cop is nowhere near where it needs to be once he's dealing with anybody. He's 25 years old, and he has no idea how to deal with the world.
Right. Training may be similar. Experience is the big issue here, is that a campus cop is not going to do these car stops, or shouldn't probably on a regular basis. They're dealing with internal issues on the campus.
Yep.
So how much experience does he have? Apparently he likes to stop cars based on what's been reported. Oh. But the whole idea is, that's fine, but do it professionally and know what you're doing.
You know, I've talked to plenty of patrol officers who tell me the most stressful part of their day is walking from their patrol car to a car that they've stopped because they don't know what they're encountering. And if they're already full of anxiety, if they've already got their hand on their gun, if there's a racial component there with a white cop and a black guy behind the wheel, we're already talking about a prescription for problems, aren't we?
Well, potentially. And, to be fair, there are people that you stop that you're going to have a problem based on previous history, based on a number of things. So, yes, that is a very difficult situation approaching cars because you are inherently at a disadvantage at the end of the day. And can you get shot? Of course, because he can swing around and shoot you. So, yes, it's a stressful situation. Not convinced the Cincinnati operation or scenario is accurate to that scenario, though, because he had no variables other than the guy didn't have a front license plate. The guy's talking to him. There's no gun apparent. He does have a bottle of booze in the car, so be it. So he didn't have really any of the elements to justify how he escalated that.
Yeah, we don't have the death penalty for not having a front license plate.
I don't think so.
I've only got about 30 seconds left here. I've got to ask you a quick question.
Sure.
The story from Lafayette last week of the guy who shot up the movie theater, he got the gun in Alabama, even though he'd had mental health problems in other states. Why don't we have a better database crossing state lines?
Because we don't have any database when it comes to mental health. Each state is on their own. Some feed it, some don't. I mean, it's woefully inadequate. The states will tell you they don't have the money to build it. They don't have the data is not in a format to put it into the system. It's a huge, huge problem that's really never been addressed.
Well, somebody needs to take it on, and it needs to be addressed, or we're going to continue to have problems like that over and over and over again. Brad, thanks for joining us this morning. Always a pleasure talking with you.
Take care.
Brad Garrett, our ABC News crime and terrorism analyst here on the Big 550.